Hey, this is Stories I Didn't Get to Tell Last Sunday. I'm Doug McAllister, and this is the new Journey Fellowship Church podcast. And we are joined today by Luis Padilla and Al Charche, great friends of mine, but also pastors on our staff. And we're going to just have a little conversation about world travel, about church planting, about UFOs, and all kinds of others. We were just talking about, of all the crazy things going on in the world right now, our government just released actual footage of real UFOs, and nobody's talking about it.
Don't worry about it.
Don't even worry about that. There's big stuff going on, man.
You know, all that conspiracy theory stuff y'all thought, yeah, don't worry. It's real.
It's real. We
don't
want
have
to
to
tell
talk
y'all.
about it, though.
Yeah. But the point in hand today is we've all had some opportunities to travel and preach the gospel in other countries. And, that is the Great Commission. And, Matthew 28, 18 through 20, Jesus said, go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. And, that is our Great Commission from Jesus and to the church. And it's still the leading cause of our fellowship today is to tell every person about Jesus. So I want to just tell some stories. The first trip I ever took on an outreach, I was probably 19 or 20 years old. I was real young. I forget exactly. But I went to Mexico with our church, and we went to, what city were we in? Not Monterrey. Is there another M city close by Monterrey? Come on.
Mexico City?
Yeah, no, it's too big.
Montezuma.
I went to Montezuma. I got some revenge there. I went to Monterrey. We went to Mazatlan. And,
Mozzarella.
Yeah, no, that's in Italy.
My
yeah.
bad.
So anyway, my first experience to go to another country was to Mexico for a week, and I think it really just opened my eyes to how many people there are on the planet.
Yeah.
It changes your perspective. International travel has a way of opening your eyes to God's love for the world, because he loves all people, every tribe, every nation, every people. Revelation 7, that scripture always stands out to me. Jesus, was on his throne, and John was a witness, and he said, and I saw a great crowd, too great to number. And they were from every tribe, every nation, every language, and every people. And they were all saying one thing: worthy is the Lamb. Man. So, Luis, I want you to you've been all over the world. Just pick a story at random, and let's talk about what God did or what happened to you there.
Well, I'm going to go with one of my favorite stories. Okay. And it happened in Salta. And I think I was sharing with you in Argentina. Sorry. Yeah. I was sharing with you, Pastor Al, about just that time that in that gang, gang-related, gang-infested area we were in, and we were trying to open up a church there, and so we were doing door-to-door visitation, kind of just invited people to the crusade and the campaign that night. And so basically, we do outdoor events. Yeah. We have church outside. When you don't have a church building, you have church outside.
Everything's a church.
Yeah. And so I told the pastor, I said, look, I think this area, there's no other churches in the area. We should just go impact it. He said, no, you don't want to go there. Yeah. I said, why not? Because it's crime infested. You don't want to go there. Yeah. I said, well, that's where we need to be.
That's exactly where the gospel should be.
Right. And so we went, and when we were doing the visitations, the team was telling me, hey, listen, don't get away from us, because if you go in a bad spot, not even the cops will come get you. Wow. It's that bad. So I had no problem. But eventually, whilst we were knocking on doors, I lost track of the team.
Yeah. Of course you did.
So I went and got him something to drink. And then I couldn't find him.
Let me just get a drink. I'm lost in this crime neighborhood. Let's go have a soft drink. Yeah.
And so I took a wrong turn. Yeah. Literally took a wrong turn, and it landed me in front of the very spot they told me not to go in. Wow. The red area, right? Wow. And so the red district. And so I made it there. And I could see a dozen or so teenagers, man. But you could just tell that they had been, dealing with things. Yeah. Needles on the ground, man. Trash infested. Dogs doing their business on the street. It's just horrible. Yeah. It's horrible. But they were there listening to their music in the middle of the day. Yeah. And so they said, look, if you see guys with their eyes tattooed, that's a sign that they're a member of a violent crime, of a violent gang.
Wow.
And so these guys had that.
Was it like teardrops or what?
Teardrops.
Yeah.
A teardrop.
That signified that they'd killed someone?
They
or?
signified that every crime they commit, they go and tattoo it on their eyes.
Oh, wow.
And so you would see a couple of different drops on their eyes.
I see, yeah.
They slice their wrist, in front of Saint Death and all of that before they go do all of that.
Wow.
And so I saw the group, and the Lord said, and I just said, thank you, Jesus, for allowing me to serve you this far. I'm ready to go home.
Hey, come get me,
but
Jesus.
I made it that far, I wasn't going to back down.
Yeah.
So I just prayed, and I went and talked to them. And as I got closer to them, it was just like a fire growing in me, man. It was just like revelation was coming to me. And I began to talk to the first guy, and as soon as I did, the guy that was sitting down stood up, and I could tell he was the
leader.
He was the man.
Yeah.
He was the boss. Long story short, the Lord began to give me revelation about him, and the Lord was just saying, "Hey, you just ask him if he would be willing for me to adopt him today. I want to adopt him today. I want him to be my son. Just ask him if he'll be willing to accept my invitation." Wow. And just like that, man, I ignored everything around me because they were checking on me, if I had drugs, or they probably thought I was a drug. They did think I was a drug lord.
Yeah.
Or
happens often
drugs.
when people see you. Clearly, he's a drug lord.
You look like a thug.
What business you have been here? Anyway, and then I just shared the gospel with him, and the moment he heard everything, man, that invitation to receive salvation, he just told all the other guys. He said, "Look, y'all kneel down in front of this little priest." And y'all all repeat what we're going to say together. And they all received Christ. They all received the gospel message.
Wow.
Right there on the spot, man.
Did you ask him the question, does he want to be adopted?
Yes. I just said, hey, listen, man. I said, hey, I know your dad left you, and you're looking for
that
love.
That was a word of wisdom you had for him.
Word of wisdom, no doubt.
Wow.
And the Lord said, just talk to him about that he's fatherless, and I would like to adopt him. And I said, look, today the Lord wants to adopt you.
Wow.
There's a Father God in heaven that wants to adopt you today. Would you be willing to accept that invitation? And man, he started crying, man.
Wow.
Started crying. So a big buff guy, in the middle of the street, in his territory,
got on his knees and followed Jesus.
Yeah, could easily put me in a room and
did
whatever, but
and we still be saying, "Where's Luis?"
Right. He went with Jesus in Argentina.
He's with Jesus.
But anyway,
so the whole gang got saved.
The whole gang got saved.
Man.
Yeah. But I think it's just,
okay. This end of the show, I can't top that stuff.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Everything. Yeah, why are we even here now? That's a great story, man.
But eventually, with that too, though, we ended up planning a church there, and they never came. They would watch me or listen to me from outside of the tent, but they would never go in because there were other members of the gang there, and they don't mix. You know?
Wow.
But their mother is one of our leaders there.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah, because she called the cops on me.
Yeah. Yeah. Now she's the leader in your church there.
She's the leader of a church.
Wow. What's that church called?
It's as an extension of the New Life.
Oh, is it?
It's a New Life.
It's like an outreach for New Life, man. That's so good. Yeah. At Journey, we've always taken short-term missions trips. And I think we've been on close to about 100. Is that right?
I have no idea.
Yeah,
it's a lot.
Yeah, I think Ken told me that he counted like 90 or 91 on different short-term trips. So, we really believe that once a person goes international and sees the cause firsthand, it opens their heart to the Great Commission, So we've had a chance to, I think we've been in like 30 different nations over the last 25 years or so, So it's been, a part of our DNA, since, in fact, before we planted Journey, Rachel and I were short-term missions leaders. And one of our jobs at the church was to take teams from the congregation to short-term trips. And one of the trips we were in Amsterdam, and that's where God spoke to Rachel and I both to plant the church that we are at now, Journey. So it started on the mission field.
Wow. Yeah.
We were standing at a YWAM base in Amsterdam. It was late at night. We did a full day's ministry. We were worn out, and we were in the red light district that night. And the red light district in Amsterdam is where all of the drugs and the prostitution, which is all legal, operates. Until all night long. So we were there. It was a brutal night, man, and we were just worn out. And Rachel and I went back to our room and we were talking, and both of us had the same exact sensing in our spirit that we were supposed to plant a church, and we didn't really weren't able to verbalize it or even know exactly what it meant, but that's where the initial seed was planted. I think God does that a lot. As we're taking care of His business, He's always taking care of our business. And Al, you went to Russia a few years ago.
Yep.
So why don't you tell us a story or two about spending some time in Russia?
Yeah, well, that was unique in the sense that it wasn't necessarily a mission trip, but the school that I was working for in the past, so currently you guys know, obviously I'm on staff with Journey, but also work for Bridges Christian College.
Right.
But in the past, for about 7 years, I was working for another school, and I was academically advising students and mentoring students and recruiting students as well, and the school was opening up locations literally all over the world. And it just so happened to be they were opening up 3 locations at the same time, and they didn't have enough people to go. So I think there was one like in Ethiopia, somewhere in Europe, and then one in Russia. And
you drew the Russia card.
Yeah, they said, hey, we don't want to go to Siberia. Do you want to go? And I was like,
absolutely.
If you're giving me a credit card, sure.
Yeah, I'm in.
Yeah. So it wasn't Siberia, but it was Kazan, Russia, was where they sent me to go and meet the pastor there and his church and the students that were interested in the school and all that thing. So I was going to prepare them and to launch that new cohort there. But it's literally traveling to Russia. I had about a 5-week notice. So it was like, here you go, here's your opportunity, do you want to go? And so very quickly, like I live in Slidell, Louisiana, I have no winter clothes.
Yeah.
I don't have the proper socks.
I'm talking turtleneck.
I'm talking to Pastor Ken, he's from Michigan. I'm like, I need to borrow your coat, bro.
You have any mittens?
You have gloves? I need something. I don't even know what I'm supposed to have.
What is cold?
Yeah, so I quickly had to pull together everything I needed, get the passport and visa and whatnot.
You had a passport in 5 weeks?
Yeah.
Wow.
Man. Yeah.
Wow.
That's expedited.
That's a miracle, man.
Yeah. So God was we believe that God was definitely in it. But on the funny side of things, I'm traveling to a foreign country. I'm alone.
Yeah.
So I don't have anybody else with me.
Which is a horrible way to travel, man.
I'm traveling from here to Istanbul. I had a layover in Istanbul and then another, I think, 6-hour flight. So it's like 12 hours to Istanbul and then another 6 hours to Kazan, Russia.
Man, so trace that again. She started in New Orleans.
Started in New Orleans. I think we went from New Orleans to Dallas, and then from Dallas to Istanbul, and then from Istanbul to Kazan, Russia.
Man.
So when we landed in Istanbul, first of all, we landed in Istanbul, and they stopped the plane in the middle of the tarmac, and then we got to walk like 6 blocks across the runway. And it's like,
Any other planes coming?
No, it was the craziest thing. And I don't speak any of the languages around, so you literally just follow the crowd.
That's in Turkey, right?
Correct.
Istanbul, yeah.
So I'm following the crowd, and then so I'm kind of following the crowd and following the numbers and hoping I don't get lost in the mix of everything here. So I've got a few hours where there's a layover, and I spent immediately. I'm not doing anything other than finding out the terminal I'm supposed to be at.
Yeah.
And I'm going there, and I'm going to park myself there, and I'm going to be there until I'm supposed to get on the plane, and I ain't moving because I don't want to take a chance of anything going south.
Oh, we'll get lost in Istanbul.
Alone, and So I make it to where I'm supposed to be, and you pull out the laptop, you start doing some work, and inevitably you get to know to some extent the people who are around you.
Yeah.
And there are 2 guys who are sitting across from me who are just slamming down the beers. I mean,
there we go.
And they're getting louder, and they're having more and more
They're
fun.
partying, man.
Oh man, they were having a blast.
Yeah.
And so at some point, I'm talking a few hours had gone by. At some point, these guys all of a sudden, like they're no longer laughing and clowning around. They're very concerned, and they're talking. Their voice is elevated. Their eyes are open. They can't believe what's going on. They're quickly gathering their things, and I'm going, hey, what's going on?
Am I missing something?
Because I don't understand what's being said on the loudspeaker.
Is the world ending? What's
They're
going
saying
on?
something I should be aware of.
Is something going to blow up?
Yeah,
So
they know something I don't know.
Clearly.
Yeah.
So I'm just going, I'm literally saying, hey, what's going on? What's going on? And he said, you American? I was like, yes. He's like, you going to Russia? I was like, yes. He was like, you follow me. So I'm following these drunk guys.
Oh, sure. Great decision.
We're just running.
That you don't even know.
I don't even
You're
know.
American.
Yeah, that was
obviously.
That was so wild. So we're running to the opposite side of the airport. It was some young woman two Russian guys, a little bit older than me, very drunk,
Yeah.
and then me we're all running through the airport. We get to where we're supposed to be to get on the plane is about to be boarding in like 10 minutes,
Yeah.
and we get to where we're supposed to be, and we're all out of breath, and we're huffing and puffing, and we're high-fiving one another. We made it! And the lady who's about to let us on the plane in a few moments, she's like, what's going on here with these crazy guys? So the guy leans down, and he reaches into his bag, and he pulls up this big, giant bottle of vodka. And he says, we will drink, brother. He wants to celebrate that we made the plane. And so I'm like, no, I don't drink. And he's looking around like,
Yeah.
why?
Are you American?
Why would you
What's wrong
not
with you?
drink?
Yeah.
And I said, no, I used to drink, but I don't drink anymore. I'm Christian. And he's saying, oh, I'm Christian too. We will drink.
Yeah.
And I said, no. So I had an opportunity to share my faith.
Yeah.
And how I had overcome addiction in the past and how
Wow.
Christ had set me free. But then he hilariously said, he still made a point, like, when we get on the plane, he said, we will drink vodka, you can drink the milk. He wanted to drink he was going to give me a shot of milk while they all drank
He wanted
vodka.
you in the
So
celebration,
milk
man.
is following you then.
Yeah.
Leche.
We got on the plane. This dude lit up a cigarette. We're on a plane to Russia. He's smoking a cigarette. They're
Drinking
drinking
vodka.
shots of vodka. It's wild. It's literally a whole nother world.
Yeah, Istanbul.
When we were there, so the point of being there was to establish a cohort for the Bible college,
Right.
interview the students, prepare their new cohort advisor, make sure he was trained properly over those few days, and make sure they had all the tools they needed to succeed.
Yeah.
So it was literally 12 to 14-hour days,
Yeah.
early in the morning till late at night,
Yeah.
and they took really good care of me for the most part. But there was one
For
day,
the most part.
There was one day
Except
we
when
did,
you died. Yeah.
Well, there was one day we didn't. I had done interviews all day. I did 2 different teaching sessions. It was just a really packed day.
Yeah.
And we didn't eat lunch that day. We didn't stop for lunch. So when I got back to the hotel that night, it was probably 10 o'clock at night, and I was just going to go to bed. It was you go without meals often, so
Yeah.
like you're going to go to bed. So I went and laid down, and you know how it is. Your stomach's rumbling like, no, this ain't going to go away. I've got to get something to eat.
Got to solve this problem.
So in the hotel there was a restaurant downstairs on the ground floor, and I figured, okay, well I'm alone. Yeah, I'm in Russia, but I'm not leaving the hotel. I'm just going to go into the restaurant. So I went downstairs, and asked the hostess. I said, "Hey, just a table for one." And as I spoke and said a table for one, there was a table off to my left with a couple of guys who were having a very good time. they had been drinking a little vodka
What you're saying is
themselves.
a party
That's
in
a
Russia.
common trait. Man.
Yeah. So the guy immediately hears that I'm American, and he says, "Oh, American, you will have dinner with us." And I said, "No, I appreciate the offer." And he said, "We insist. We buy you steak." And I'm saying, "Well, I do like steak." So I'm lured to have dinner with these Russians whom I don't know by a steak. That's how hungry I was.
Yeah.
So I sat down with these guys, and so I know this sounds like the setup to a joke.
Yeah.
But in all honesty, they're drinking, and again, I start to tell them like why I don't drink.
Yeah.
Hey, I used to have addictions. I gave my life to Christ. I've been set free, and they still couldn't understand. Like your wife is not here. Yeah. Like I was alone.
Yeah.
In a foreign country, and I wasn't drinking. I wasn't partying.
Your wife's not enforcing it.
For real.
Yeah.
That was that like I was blowing their mind. So when I said I'm a Christian, one of the guys said, "Well, I'm a Christian." So he's an Orthodox Christian. Another guy was agnostic, didn't believe there was proof one way or another if there was a God. And then there was another guy who was Muslim. Yeah. So they're all drinking vodka.
Man,
they're all
Three
eating,
Musketeers, bro.
They're all eating all this types of food. So I found out they work together.
Yeah.
They worked for one guy worked for Coca-Cola, and they all work together in different ways. And what was interesting about that whole affair was that while they're drinking, while they're partying and having fun, and they were all super kind and courteous to me. This was before Donald Trump was elected president, so he was running for president. We were talking about Putin, we're talking about Trump, we're talking about all the things going on in the world, talking about our faith. And the major difference between our faith is Christians, as followers of Christ, and where they were, even the Orthodox Christian and the Muslim man, before anything else, they said, first and foremost, we are Russian. then I am a Christian.
Wow.
First I am a Russian,
Right.
then I am Muslim. And that's how the Muslims and the Christians there, or any other sect of religion, were able to get along, because they put their faith essentially in their government and in Putin before any other thing.
Wow.
And me, being a Christian, I place my faith in Christ
first,
and my Christianity above every other thing.
Right.
So it's just a very unique dynamic
That's
sitting
interesting.
there at that table. I didn't lead a gang leader to Christ. It wasn't anything like that, but it was still a unique opportunity just to see the differences in philosophies and ways of thinking across the globe, where so many people will claim to be Christian, but they'll place their Christianity on a back burner and place their nationality before that.
Yeah. So what you're saying is a Muslim, a Christian, and an agnostic walked into a bar.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And they met a white boy from America who wouldn't drink.
I'm telling you, it has all the trappings.
All the
of
joke needs is a punchline,
right?
man.
But yeah, it actually happened, and I could show you the photo of this guy. He is by far the most Russian-looking man you've ever seen in your life. Completely bald head, just a big square jaw. Yeah. But everybody was super
He could have
cool.
been on a James Bond movie. Yeah.
Everybody was super cool.
But then again, you never know. You just never know what happens out of a conversation like that. Because just like that parable Jesus mentioned, right? That a small amount of flour will permeate the entire dough.
Yeah.
And that's like the gospel is. You just don't know that the Father is always at work. Taking any kind of evidence or effort of the gospel, and He's permeating it in the dough, and
so even though I didn't see what happened or the results of the fruit, I still believe that was a divine appointment.
Absolutely.
There are no accidents, in my opinion. When we're in the will of God, nothing but the will of God happens to us. So I believe it was the will of God for me to be there. I believe it was the will of God for me to be downstairs at that moment, having dinner with those guys, sowing those seeds. Because again, that was mind-blowing to them, that a man traveling without his wife would not be drinking or partying.
But I think that speaks about where we at as a nation today too. Because people complain about the state of our country, and rightly so. But I'm saying is, if we, like Pastor was saying yesterday in the sermon, if we only do our part, if every single one of us, followers of Christ, would do our part and living the gospel out, right? Because that's what it's about. It's not about a meeting on a particular day and singing the right things to the right tune and listening quietly and then orderly going back to your mess. No, it's about living the message out in your life. And I think that as a country, that we see it in shambles, right, or whatever, but if each of us took it seriously to have conversations with people that we don't agree with, right? They don't look like us, don't sound like us. Yeah. But if we, in a loving conversation, just live out Christ to them, man. Yeah. I think that that's the Father can take that dough, that flour, and permeate it in the entire dough of a nation.
Luis, and I don't know, you might not even know, Pastor, but you're the guy who instilled that hunger and thirst for the lost in me.
I remember that.
So taking me out to do evangelism, bringing me to the prisons and teaching me. I remember the first time you said, "Hey, you want to come to the prison with me?" I was like, "Bro, I just got out.
I'm not volunteering to go back in.
I don't want to go back. I don't know." And Luis said, "I said I don't know what." I was newly saved, just home from rehab, but God was stirring in my heart. Yeah. And Luis said, "Just come with me." And it's one of those things. It's where it's like I don't know what to say. I don't know how to. I don't barely understand the gospel myself.
Right.
Yeah.
But Luis said, "Just come with me. Come be a part of what I'm doing." And I just walked with you, watched how you interacted with people, listened how you interacted with people. Yeah. And after a couple of we had J9 at that time, Journey 9th Ward. And after we were going down there were about 10 or 12 of us, me, you, and Sean, and a few others were going down every weekend.
Greg.
And Greg was down there.
That's right.
Yeah. So we were going down there every weekend, and we were just doing evangelism around the church in the 9th Ward. And I remember one weekend specifically. So for those you guys might not know, I used to buy drugs in the 9th Ward.
Yeah.
So I'm going back with this group of people from Slidell, from Journey, to the 9th Ward, and Jen was more than a little bit uneasy about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
For good reason.
But she knows Luis and trusts Luis and everybody else. So it's like, okay, well, you're with a crowd of people. You're not going to be disappearing.
Right.
Well, one Friday night we're going to go out. Luis is sick. He's not going to go. Sean has a family event. He's not going to go. Greg canceled. There's a kid's birthday party. Something was going on with everybody. And I had fasted the day or two prior to that Friday night.
Yeah.
And really believed I'm supposed to go. We're supposed to live it out, as you just said a moment ago. And so Pastor Robert is going to meet us all down there. One by one, the phone's ringing. Everybody's canceling. We're not going. We're not going. We're not going. So now I'm sitting there telling Jen, hey, babe.
I'm going by myself.
I'm going to the
Oh,
ninth
no,
ward.
you're not, boy.
And I'm going to do some evangelism by
awesome.
myself.
Yeah.
And I just told her, I said, listen, I believe this is what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
This is the will of God. This is where I'm supposed to be. And so after now just for clarity, if she would have been completely against it,
Sure.
like, no, I would have honored her and I would not have gone.
Right.
But after having a heartfelt conversation, she believed that the Holy Spirit was in it.
Yeah.
She was.
So I did. I went down.
Yeah.
I met Pastor Robert at J9, and when I walked in, so literally there were a dozen of us who were going every week, and now all of a sudden it's just me walking in. And I promise you, Pastor Robert said, I was hoping you would cancel too. I was tired. I was ready to go home. He was just being honest.
I was hoping you
He was like, I thought you was. So now because
I
I'm
felt
there,
like that
we
before.
have to go.
Yeah.
And so now I'm feeling like, oh, geez, did I miss it? Am
Yeah.
I forcing something? So Pastor Robert and I, we prayed for about 30 minutes together there in the NJ9 alone. We walked out of the church. We made it about 2 blocks.
Yeah.
There's a woman sitting on the stoop on the corner of St. Claude waiting for the bus. And we walked up, started sharing my testimony with her. The bus came and left. She wasn't getting on that bus.
Wow.
Fully involved in our conversation right then and there. Gave her life to Christ. The next Sunday, she went to J9 Teen Challenge. We talk about divine appointments.
Man.
Teen Challenge was there at J9 that Sunday. She didn't even go back home to get her clothes.
She left that
She
same
went
day.
straight
She
there.
went straight
Wow.
to Teen Challenge
Come
that
on.
Sunday.
Come on,
so
Jesus.
those divine appointments, when we as people of God are just living out our faith, when we're living in the will of God, sharing our faith, loving one another, acting the way that the Bible tells us clearly we're supposed to act, people's lives are changed.
Yeah.
Right.
Thanks for being nice, man. But the Holy Spirit was already upon you. And
Yeah.
I just want to be your friend
Amen.
and help in whatever way I can, bro. But,
Amen.
You know, sometimes we learn things on missions trips that we didn't intend to learn.
Yeah.
And things happen that we didn't plan. And I think maybe those things may be the real reason we went anyway,
Yeah.
you know, because man makes his plans, but God orders his steps, you know. And I think that's true, especially when you step out, when you go to, Russia, or you go to Argentina, or you go to a nation where you're not familiar with the culture or the language. You know, we took a trip to Jakarta, Indonesia. My pastor was doing a teenage concert crusade, and he asked me if I'd travel with him, and man, I jumped at the chance because, you know, first it was an honor to be able to travel with my pastor, but the second, I really wanted to do some missions work in Indonesia. So I went to Indonesia. We spent a week, maybe 10 days there, and it's an incredible country. It's a beautiful nation, lots of tourists there, but there's, you know, hundreds of, how many, 200 million people there. It's one of the biggest countries in the world. I forget how many, and it's predominantly Muslim, but it's quasi-democracy. So we're there, we're preaching freely. Pastor does this big crusade. You know, he does a concert. Kids are getting saved. This is an amazing week there. The last 2 days we were there, our host, and they put us up in this really nice house because most of our host families were expats. They were Americans living in Indonesia working, so they were very wealthy. So they rented us a house, and it was a mansion. You know, it was marble floors and had just everything, all the amenities. So we were living in this beautiful place, preaching the gospel, being treated like, you know, family. Our last day, they said, "Hey, you want to go shopping?" I'm not much of a shopper, but Pastor wanted to go shopping. He said, "I really want to get some souvenirs." So we went to this mall, and it was a mall as big as a city block. It was massive, and there was an underground parking. So we were in the van that belonged to one of the families, and they drove us to the mall. They paid for parking, and we had all of our luggage there because we were leaving the next morning, so we had packed up. And the driver said, "Leave your luggage in the car, and the security guard will pay him extra to stand by the car, and he'll watch your luggage, because we could be gone for hours. You don't want to drug your luggage around all over the place." Well, you know, I made a foolish decision. I was in charge of all of our travel documents. I had our passports, our airplane tickets, everything. And he said, just leave it in there. I should have never, and of course, I was early on in my ministry, never made that mistake again. I left them in the car. We came back 5 or 6 hours later. The security guard was gone. The windows in the van was gone. All of our luggage was gone. All of our travel documents were gone. And pastor turned around and said, you do have our passports. I said, well, they were in the luggage. That's the last time I got to travel with him, I'll tell you that. So we called the police. They came out and said, nothing we can do about it. It's gone. So anyway, this was Thanksgiving, in 1994 or something like that, 93, 94. And he said, nothing we can do about it. So they took us back to our house and dropped us off. Well, the day coming was Sunday, and the pastor said, well, since you're not going home, you can preach at our church. So it was a church of about 5,000, and they had 3 or 4 locations. So they put pastor in the main auditorium, which was a permanent building, and they put me in one of the campuses, which was a hotel ballroom with about 800 people. It was a pretty big church. You go preach there, and pastor was going to go to the main auditorium. We'll meet up for lunch. So they had a driver take me to the hotel ballroom. So worship was done, and it was one of those amazing services where like heaven opened up and the power of God fell. You felt the presence of Jesus. Even though I had no money, I had no travel documents, I had no passport, I had no identification. My whole world really was ended, because we couldn't even leave the nation. But it was just that moment, just forget everything and worship God kind of a decision, which is always a really good choice. When you can do nothing else, just worship God and trust Him. So this is my turn. So the pastor introduced me to preach, so I got up to preach. And I preached, I don't remember what the topic was. I preached passionately about the gospel. And then in the end, I gave an altar call for healing. And maybe 100 people came up for the altar call or so. And we prayed over every person. And the very last guy in the very back of the altar call was standing there waiting for me. He didn't want any of the other pastors to pray for him. He wanted me to pray for him. And I got finished. Walked up to him, and I noticed that he was dressed maybe like he was the groundskeeper. And he had a big bandage on his right hand where it had fresh blood still on it. He looked a little, unkept. So I thought, okay, maybe he wandered in and maybe he just heard the service and he wanted to give his life to Christ. So I looked him in the eye. I got his prayer request and I talked to him about giving his life to Jesus. And he wanted me to pray for his family. So I prayed for him passionately, man. The Spirit just really fell on me. I prayed for him, prayed for healing for his hand. And when I was done, I just said, great to meet you, and I pray that God does great things. And I walked away. They got in the car. They took me back to our house, and I'm thinking, well, this is over. Then how you hit that, the darkness after you have a high, like, oh man, I'm still stuck in this country. I have no way home. I have no money. I have no identification, and
pastor's mad at you.
Yeah, my pastor's ticked at me, to say the least. He's like, Doug, I can't believe you lost not only your documents, but mine. Well, about 2 hours later, a Mercedes rolls up in front of our house, which wasn't uncommon because it's a very rich neighborhood. Big, brand new Mercedes rolls up. And they had a chauffeur. The guy got out of the back seat and walked up our sidewalk to the front door. I looked out the window, and I was like, hey, that's the gardener from the hotel that I just prayed for. So he walks up to the door, he knocks on the door, open it, and he said, hey, I know you're stuck here. And he was very fluent in English. He said, I know you're stuck here, and I brought you some movies to watch. And this is back when, you had VCRs and movies. So he hit me a whole stack of movies. This will help you kind of kill the time. And I ordered you some pizza. So they're going to be delivering pizza in a few minutes. And here's some drinks. And I want to just kind of get you, comfortable. He said, because tomorrow I'm going to take you down to the American Embassy and to the immigration office, and we're going to get you new documents. I'm thinking, what kind of gardener has that kind of connection, man? He's going to get me in to see the ambassador, and I'm going to get to go into into immigration. He said, I'm going to get your documents restored. It normally takes months. I'm going to get it done this week. Well, I found out later that he owned a chain of pizza restaurants across the nation. He owned, and if I said the name of the pizza corporation, you would know it. He owned every pizza franchise in the country. Oh, man. He was worth millions, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars. And the next morning, he came and got me in his Mercedes. And man, I was like, I have never been chauffeured in a Mercedes in my life, you know. So I'm going, everywhere he went, they opened the door for him. We went into immigrations. He went right up to the top guy, you know, and the guy came in his day off and gave us our documents. But what my point of the story is this, is that even when it seems like everything's falling apart and like your plans didn't work out, that just may be exactly where God wants you to be. Because had we stayed home from church that day, had I not preached passionately about Christ, had I not prayed for this gardener who looked like he was out of place, none of that would have happened.
Stay home when everybody else cancels on you.
Exactly. If you stay home when everybody else cancels, or when you do what you feel like you really want to do,
Right.
you know, sometimes you miss out on probably the best part of the whole trip. And man, that's what I think happens in every outreach and in every, whether it's local or foreign, you know, God's moving in ways you didn't plan, you know. So that's some of our stories that we didn't get to tell last Sunday. So I'm hoping that you enjoyed hearing from Pastor Luis and Pastor Al. I hope you are inspired about the Great Commission. You know, hope you get connected at Journey. If you are listening and you live close by Slidell, Louisiana, come visit us on Sunday morning. You can go to journeyfellowshipchurch.com for travel directions, more information about us. Better yet, go to your app store and type Journey Fellowship Church in the search bar and download our app. It's free. You can download it to your smart device. It's loaded with information about Journey Fellowship Church. There's past message series. There's other editions of the podcast you can watch. There's other resources available to build your faith, how to get connected, how to find a small group. Lots of stuff right from the Journey app. And download it today. We would love to be able to connect with you personally, though. So come visit us Sunday morning at 10 o'clock. In Slidell, Louisiana. So Pastor Luis, Pastor Al, it's been a fun day to hear your great stories, and hope you'll join us again for Stories I Didn't Get to Tell Last Sunday. So we're out.